Welcome to UK Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yukai Kechidori.
Hey, welcome again to the show. Today is a great day because we're going to be talking about leadership. Now, if you're a business owner and you've been at it for some time, you know that leadership training is an absolute must if you are to stay in the game. Well, John Spencer, our leadership expert, has joined us here today just to help you understand what you need to do and what you need not to do in order to grow your business, expand your business, or even just literally take your business to the next level. John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
It's my absolute honor and pleasure to be here with you. I'm looking forward to it.
Incredible. Now, I understand, John, you've been on the road for 23 years, traveling, helping business owners, and doing all sorts of crazy things, working with Fortune 500 and many other, great companies. Talk to us about your background for a moment.
Sure. This is, as you mentioned, I'm entering my 24th year. I travel 220 days a year worldwide. And I actually help companies of all sizes. I do a lot of work at the Fortune 500, actually at the Fortune 10 level. But I also do a lot of work for small to medium-sized businesses, do a lot of work working with groups of CEOs who are running small companies. So it gives me a lot of exposure from the very, very top in the world. I get to learn some neat ideas, and then I get to come and share those ideas with other people to help them improve their businesses.
Indeed, and you've also written 5 books. Talk to us about those ones.
Well, I've written several books. Actually, my first book was on leadership, and right. I did not think I was smart enough to write a book. I didn't think I had enough experience. And one of my clients called me and said, I'd like to buy 500 copies of your leadership book. And I said, I don't have one. He said, then write it and I'll buy the first 500 copies. So that's how I became an author. And then I was approached by some of the major printing houses to write other books. And much of what I write now is at the request of clients. I'm just finished up a new book on referrals. And that was a client that said, we're really, really struggling with this in our business. Can you help us? And I said, well, here's what I'll do. I'll research that topic heavily and I'll write a short book on it. And that will help you and it'll help other clients like that. So most of my books come from a demand in the marketplace.
Indeed, and you do very well with that. One of the things I love about you, John, I'll be honest with that, I know I'm singing praise right now, is your training on high performance teams and managing culture, which is incredible. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I started in this business years ago doing very, very high-level sales training and strategy work, yes. Helping companies close deals of $100 million or larger. And as I've moved along in my career, I realized that sales was nice, but really the company was run by the folks that were leading it, the teams they built across the organization, and in large part, the culture. And I've got a phrase that says, culture equals cash. Right. And many companies I work in, most actually, you might be able to get a little bit of efficiency by buying a new machine, and maybe you could tweak your marketing a little bit. But the biggest place that can help or destroy a company, in my opinion, in most companies, is the culture of the organization. A culture of high engagement, excited employees that are focused, that want to do great and deliver business results is a make or break factor in helping a company be successful.
Wow, incredible. Would you say your connection with the Rockefeller organization has something to do with this understanding?
Yeah, for those that don't know my background, I joined one of the Rockefeller foundations right out of college, yes. Doing marketing, public relations. And about 3.5-4 years later, I was named CEO of that foundation, overseeing projects in 20 countries around the world, reporting directly to Winthrop P. Rockefeller III. And that was the rocket launching platform for my career for 2 reasons. One is I was forced at a very young age to become a leader and to run a large company and handle a staff. And frankly, I was in way over my head, but I had some great mentors, some great coaches. I read a lot. I learned as much as I could. And then number two, running a company like that at such a young age. And I was named one of the top young CEOs in Florida under the age of 40 when I was 33. And Inc. magazine named me as one of America's up-and-coming young business leaders when I was 34. Those were big factors in my career starting so early.
Indeed, and of course, now you speak to a large group of CEOs, helping a lot of people, and we're delighted to have you on this show. Let's jump into it. You certainly are the man to talk about leadership. Let's jump on to the subject we have tonight. The 7 leadership mistakes that you see a lot of business owners make today that they really need to avoid. Let's start with what you consider to be the number one mistake you see leaders make.
Oh, that's an easy one. Absolutely, the number one by far is lack of honesty.
Right.
If you're not truly honest with high integrity, character, and transparency, there is absolutely no way you can effectively lead an organization. And this is a really hard topic for me to cover right now because of things that are happening globally and what you see with some quote unquote people at the top. And my phrase is always, those aren't leaders. They happen to be in a position of power, but they're not true leaders, because without honesty, integrity, character, being a values-based leader, in my opinion, and all the research shows that is the single biggest factor in why people either follow or leave a leader.
Wow. Give us an example of where this mistake has caused tremendous pain to the organization in your work over the years.
Well, I could give you lots of small ones, but we'll use a big one here in America, which was Wells Fargo recently. The bank got in a lot of trouble because the leadership team demanded that they make certain numbers, hit certain numbers for Wall Street, and didn't really care how that was achieved. And what we saw is that lack of character and integrity moved down throughout the organization to where frontline managers lied to their customers and their leaders lied to the level above and above and above, all in an effort to make money and meet their quote-unquote budget, which led to, I think it was 5,000 managers being fired.
Wow.
And then here's the bad part is when the CEO who was running that company was terminated for all this lack of honesty, lack of integrity, lack of transparency, he got a multi-million-dollar payout for leaving the company. And when you have someone who lies, who doesn't live by values, who lacks integrity and character and gets paid 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 million dollars to leave, you have set a very bad precedent for the organization that honesty is not rewarded, making your numbers is rewarded. And unfortunately, thousands of people lost their jobs because of that lack of integrity.
Indeed. Now, John, you and I know that lack of integrity or integrity start on a personal level, individual. Suppose a business owner is listening today and they notice that things are not exactly like the way they do. Are there any necessary steps or something they can do to correct this, maybe lack of integrity in the organization?
In the organization. Well, the main thing there, in my opinion, is to have a very clear, vivid, compelling vision and values for the organization. And here's one of my favorite phrases. It comes from Walt Disney of Disney World. When values are clear, decisions are easy. When the values of an organization are lived by the leaders, they're clear, they're well communicated, they're compelling, then those set the standard for the rest of the organization. And when you've got clear values, it allows you to empower the people across your organization to make decisions, and they can do it quickly because it's easy, very easy to compare my behavior to the values, my decision to the values, my decision to our strategy and our purpose. I'm going to hit you with a bunch of phrases today. One of the most powerful ones I've ever learned in my life is, ambiguity breeds mediocrity. And this is going to come up later in our conversation around leadership. But if you have ambiguous values, then people don't know how to make a decision, what to do, what's right, what's wrong. So the number one thing that a leader can do is first look at their own values. How will I lead myself, and what kind of a leader do I want to be? And then number two, they will be a living example of the values that they want everyone else in the organization to live by. And those values are what people have to hold themselves in integrity to.
Indeed. For those maybe who have already made these mistakes, are there any steps you could recommend they need to do, to take in order to rectify this? Because we know that the end result is not good.
Right. Well, I have, when I deal with this in organizations, I have a multi-step process. First step is I go out and survey all the employees anonymously and ask them, how do you see the culture? What are the problems? What are you doing well at? So we'll take that as a baseline as you create a data set that says, this is what our values are now. This is how we act and behave now. And that helps the senior management team realize that there's a problem. And the senior management team might be 2 people, 3 people, 30 people, depending on the size of the company. Then that group of senior managers needs to sit down and look at the difference between where the organization is now and where they need it to be or want it to be in the future, and then create a value structure, a culture goal around that, and then put into place the steps to start to move that into the company. The number one step being the senior management team needs to fully commit to living those values, to talking about them, espousing them, telling stories about them, and building them into the culture. Hire for that culture, hire for those values, develop people, and terminate people who violate the values. And in most of the organizations I work with, I tell them, if you start to go through this transition, it'll be 18 to 24 months before you see any major changes. That changing your culture is something that's difficult, challenging. There's a lot of obstacles, and it takes a long time. But if you don't do it, it usually leads a company towards failure.
Indeed, absolutely, indeed. Let's progress on to the next mistake you see, John. Maybe it's something that business owners do and don't realize that it's a mistake. It's got a terrible result at the end of it.
Well, if we're going to go, there's several other things, but if we're going to go with that one, then I would say it's a lack of transparency. Right. They don't share enough information with their people that their folks can make good decisions. Here I go with another phrase. People without access to information do not have to take accountability for their actions. A lot of leaders think that information is power. That if I'm the only one that knows these numbers, I can direct people and I can tell them what to do and I'll have power and control over them. It's actually the opposite. The more information you share, the more you can empower your people, and which actually is the more power you have. So the thing that I think that leaders do and don't realize is they don't share enough information, and because of that, their people are guessing at what they're supposed to be doing. They're guessing at how the company's going. They're guessing at the financial strength of the company, and they're hoping that everything goes all right. And as I like to say, hope is not a strategy.
That's another powerful statement. Hope is not a strategy. I like that, John.
Thank you.
We got that covered. What is the next step, John?
Yeah, the next step is the biggest problem I see in companies. Honesty is the biggest leadership mistake. The biggest problem I see in companies, also led by leaders, is a lack of accountability and disciplined execution. Right. As we mentioned earlier, I work with companies all over the world of every size and pretty much in every imaginable market. There's not a lack of smart people or good strategies or quality products and services or great marketing ideas, but there's a huge lack of people that can take those ideas and turn them into action. I'm at my 17th year as a guest lecturer in the executive program, a special executive conference at the Wharton School of Business, one of the most renowned business schools in the world. And every year I get about 100 to 120 CEOs, senior executives in my class. And I ask them what percentage of companies that know what to do, that have a good strategy, that know how to win in the marketplace, what percentage of them effectively executes their strategy? And the answer is 10 to 15%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's what I call the knowing-doing gap. They know what they're supposed to do, but they just don't have the discipline to consistently deliver on it day in and day out.
Incredible. Now, how do you solve this problem?
Yeah, it's actually it's simple, but it takes a lot of courage to implement. So there's 5 steps to creating a culture of accountability and disciplined execution, and here they are. Step 1 is I'm going to hold you, Kai, responsible for a major project, a major strategy in my company. This is something that's got to get done. So what I do is I sit down and tell you, or we'll use it third person. The leader tells the employee in great detail, and what I say is 100% clarity plus appropriate authority and resources. In other words, I explain to you in great detail what success looks like, how we're going to measure it, what the metrics are, what the key performance indicators are, what the timeline is, what the hurdle rate is, what the milestones are. I'm going to give you all the resources you need to make that happen and enough authority to make all the key decisions. So step 1 is 100% clarity plus appropriate authority and resources. Step 2 then is 100% agreement. I need to have you, who I'm holding accountable for achieving this major strategy in the company, after I've explained it, look back at me and better yet, write it down. Here is what you told me. Here is what success looks like. This is when it's due. These are the timelines. This is the budget. On and on and on and on. Everything. Then at the bottom of that piece of paper you write, I believe this is a reasonable goal. And here's the big one. I accept 100% accountability.
Right.
So, and I've asked business owners around the world, how many of you consistently do that for all the major projects in your company? On a scale of 9 to 10, with 10 being world-class, or 1 to 10 with 10 being world-class, how many of you are a solid 9 or a 10 on always getting 100% clarity, appropriate authority, resources, 100% agreement? And the answer is not a single person in the world has raised their hand yet out of probably 40 or 50,000 people. So that's step 1, step 2. Now step 3 is track and post. Once I've established those goals for that strategy and all the other strategies of the company, I need to track everybody's progress against those major strategic goals. And there's 2 key ideas around track and post. Number 1, it's got to be super easy to understand. I got to be able to look at it in 3 seconds, know where I stand against my goal. And I recommend green, yellow, red. Green, you're doing great. Yellow, caution. Red, you're in trouble. And then step number 2, and here's really where it breaks down, is that needs to be visible to everybody in the entire company. Every single person in the entire company knows where everybody else stands against their major goals, the major strategies. Now, the reason that that's difficult, it takes a lot of courage to do that, because most people think that tracking and posting equals punishment. I'm going to track you so you get in trouble. I'm going to track you so I can withhold bonus or not give you a promotion, or whatever it might be. But we need to turn that around, and that's what step number 4 is coach, mentor, train, support. In other words, when someone slips from green to yellow, they don't get in trouble, they get help. I don't yell at you, I run in and go, hey, I noticed you slipped from green to yellow. What can I do? Can I coach you, help you, mentor you? Do you need more resources? That doesn't mean I'm going to do my job for you, but I'm here to support you and help you get back into green. And eventually, when the culture realizes that tracking equals help, everybody is happy to be tracked, which leads to the 5th and final step of creating accountability and execution. Reward success lavishly. When someone is held accountable for a major strategy, a major goal, and they deliver it, make a big deal out of it. Hold them as an example. And when someone consistently can't meet their goals, don't deliver on strategies, they're yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, you're coaching, you're helping, you're supporting, and they still can't do it, then you deal decisively with that mediocrity, which typically means you ask them to leave the company.
Well explained, as clearly as it can be there, John. Outstanding. That's the reason we have experts like John helping you as business owners, so you can implement exactly the same strategies you're learning today. What would be the next mistake you see business owners, make consistently, especially those who are aspiring to be playing on the highest level?
Yeah, the next one is one, Okay, that Kai, that's come into really, really sharp focus for me the last couple of years, and it's been painful because I've watched this actually happen in some companies. Is as goes the senior leadership team, so goes the entire company. That I worked with a company last year, had about 400 employees. They had 11 people on their senior management team, did about, 35, $40 million a year in business. And two and a half of the people, let's say three on the management team, didn't like each other. They argued, they fought, they undercut each other, they went behind each other's back. There was politics, rumor mongering, finger pointing. And those three people basically forced the entire company to go bankrupt. All 400 employees lost their jobs. The company went out of business. And it's not just the 400 jobs, it's their husbands, their wives, their kids, the vendors, the businesses around there, the restaurants. I watched three people destroy literally thousands of jobs because they couldn't get along, because they had a dysfunctional leadership team. The other side of the coin is I've seen really good leadership teams, high performance leadership teams, turn bad companies around or make good companies world class. So that group of people, again, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 people or 11 or 12 or 15 people decide the business, if those people are high performance, working well, they can take a company to new heights. If they're arguing and fighting and they don't get along and they don't share information, they can completely destroy an entire company. A handful of people can cause thousands of people to lose their jobs.
Incredible, incredible. Well, let's explore that a bit, John. You know, for those businesses in leadership role, what can they do during those moments of contention when they are not agreeing? Oftentimes, they would have started together well, and they go to have got some success, but now they're having few difficulties. What would be your advice now?
Well, there's 3 or 4 things they need to embrace. The first one is courageous communication. They need to be able to put that stuff on the table with candor and honesty and discuss even the most difficult situations. If it doesn't get discussed, it won't get fixed. And that was a big problem I saw with leadership in companies about 7 or 8 years ago in America and around the world when we had the global recession, was that leaders knew there were problems in the company. They were losing money. They were losing clients, but they didn't talk about it because they wished it went away. So number one is they have to learn to have courageous communications. Number two is they need to deal with facts, not personalities. Microsoft has been one of my clients in the past, and they have a great saying: be tough on ideas and easy on people. You know, push hard to get the best idea, to get things going, do it, but never ever attack anyone else. Number three, and I'm a big one on this, is you can't fight with data. So if a company's struggling financially, there's a problem. People get all mad and angry stuff, but if you can put black and white binary data on the table and say, hey, listen, there's no politics in this, there's no emotion, there's no personality. These are just the facts. Let's deal with the facts. And then the last one I think is a big one is you don't have to have 100% agreement. You just need to have consensus. And I see a lot of management teams that get struggle because everybody can't agree. And this is an Apple saying, this is from Amazon, from Jeff Bezos, disagree and commit. Okay, I don't agree with you guys. I know I'm not 100%, but I believe in the rest of the management team. I don't agree, but when I walk out of this room in front of the rest of the company, I will be 100% committed fully to engaging and making sure we deliver on this. I've said what I want to say. I've put it out. I've said it with honesty and candor. I don't agree with you folks, but we must have a unified leadership team. And that's a big one, is when you get that infighting and then people go out of that meeting and they start complaining. The leaders complain to people in the company. The people in the company start to complain, and no one is fully committed to making things happen.
Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding, John. Outstanding. If you've just joined us, we're having a great time here with John and taking a lot of notes, and I'm sure you too. If you've got any questions, please send us those information. I will get them answered for you. John, let's switch gears for a moment. You are a business owner, like many of our audience here today. There are a few questions I get asked a lot. How do you keep yourself going?
Well, that's a really easy question. And the answer is pretty simple. You got to love what you do. You got to be passionate. I'm mentoring 2 young entrepreneurs in Poland. I've been doing some teaching for the American consulate across Poland for the last few years, teaching entrepreneurship, and they're building a new business. And I said, there's 3 things you got to have, and this comes from Jim Collins' hedgehog concept. You got to be really good at something that is valuable in the marketplace. Number 2 is you've got to be deeply passionate about it. Number 3 is there has to be a strong economic engine. So really good at something that's highly valuable, that you love to do, that you're passionate about, that people are willing to pay for, that they want to pay for. So the thing that keeps me going is I'm passionate about what I do, and I like to help people solve big problems that are holding them back. So I think to be successful in business, you got to love what you do, you got to be passionate about it, you got to enjoy it, you got to approach it as a craft, and you have to know that every day you get up, you're making a difference to the people that you serve. If you really believe those 2 things, you jump out of bed and run to work. If either one of those things are missing, you're just doing it for money, and money is eventually a very bad motivator.
Indeed. One of my guests said, if you are doing it for money, that's a sad life to live.
Very much so. You will hit the wall and you will hate what you do, but you will be trapped by your budget, by your personal finances. You will have bought a big house, bought a couple of cars, bought a boat, blah, 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 blah. And you get up in the morning and say, I hate what I do, but I can't afford to quit. And that's a horrible place to be.
Well, John, as we come toward the end of our time together, how can people get in touch, maybe work with you?
Yeah, the best thing to do is, number 1 is my website is easy. It's Spence.com, johnspence.com. I've also got a blog, which I think would be very helpful. There's a lot of ideas on there, a lot of videos, and that's blog at johnspence.com, or no, johnspence.com/blog. I don't know, just go to my website and look at the blog. And then the most important way is probably if any of your listeners have a question, a concern, an issue, they want some advice, my email is john@johnspence.com. And I'm always happy to help in any way I humanly can. And if I don't have the answer, I can typically find somebody who does.
Indeed. Really appreciate you sharing that information, certainly. Now, is there anything I haven't asked you about leadership you're passionate about and you wish to convey to our audience today, just to wrap up the conversation here today?
Yeah, and I'm tying back into something a little bit before, but realize that when you're a leader, whether you lead 1 or 2 people or 10,000, you live under a microscope. They watch everything you do. They hear everything you say. They see what you don't do, and they hear what you don't say, and they make up a story about it, and it's usually not a good one. So the idea there is you have a huge responsibility. Leadership is fun and exciting, and it's neat to make decisions. But at the end of the day, at least for me when I've run companies, the number 1 thing I worry about is, am I taking good care of my people? I have all these families that depend on me, and all these folks and vendors and everything, and I need to lead this company the best I possibly can. So leadership is fun, but it's also a huge obligation. And to me, the definition of a true leader is someone who is a living example of what they hope their followers will one day be. And that's a big challenge, but it's also a challenge that makes you a much better person individually. So I think it's a very rewarding path to walk.
There you have it, John Spencer on Yokai Business Show, sharing some tips on leadership. In fact, we will be having John again very soon on the show, where he will be training you on the critical skills that you as a business owner needs to develop in your leadership journey. And we are delighted to have him again on the next show. If you've got any question, again, reach out to John. You can click the link below this audio and you'll be taken straight to John's website. Alternatively, send him an email. Great man, as you can tell. I'll be able to answer any question that you may have. With that says, go make it happen. Great as it is listening to this concept, it's even greater when you implement it in your business. I'm so grateful that you can be part of the journey of my journey of learning and also implementing these strategies. With that said, have a great day, everyone. Again, John, absolute pleasure having you, and thank you again.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Goodbye for now.
Thank you for listening to UK Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.ukbusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.